Okay, so in this video we're going to be checking out the Skyzone SKY02C goggles. These are the ones here. And some of you probably have not noticed, but I've been using these for about 2.5 months now. And I've switched from my Fatshark Dominator V3s. These are the first goggles that I've had, and I've been using them for about 3 years now. So I've actually made the formal switch over to the Skyzones, and we'll talk about why that is. Also want to show you the Yixin EV200Ds. This is another popular Fatshark style goggle. It does have quad receivers, or 4 receivers, so 2 diversity receivers on each side. And I've had this for a long time, actually a lot longer than the Skyzones, and I've been using the Yixins on and off for a while, giving them a try, seeing if I want to switch from the Fatsharks, and I just haven't been able to switch over to the Yixins. And the main reason is it's kind of bulky. With look at all the antennas and receivers, it's a bit heavy. This does fit my face better. The profile here is better fitting for me than the Fatsharks. Just that I just didn't like the weight and the bulk, even with the battery in the back. And the other thing that I really didn't like so much was the screen. It's okay. It's not as nice as the Fatshark screens. It's a little bit smaller field of view, which is okay for me because I actually think that the field of view on the Fatsharks is a little bit too wide for me, but I just didn't feel like the screen quality was up to the Fatshark standards. This is the reason why I never actually switched to the Yixin. And no, don't get me wrong, this is a good goggle, very popular goggle. A lot of pilots use it, and they swear by it. But these are all kind of in that same sort of price category, around the $300 mark, maybe a little bit under $300. I think the Fatsharks are going to be a little bit more. The Dominator V3s, depending on what receiver module you get. And the reason I switched from the Fatsharks, I decided to go to the Skyzones, is mainly because of the lower weight. So again, this is, kind of a subjective thing. Yeah, the weight difference isn't huge, maybe 20 grams or something like that, but I could notice a difference. And the fit on my face here, I've always never really enjoyed the profile here of the Fatsharks. I have too much pressure here on the side of my face. And light leakage here in the nose area and on top. The fit on the Skyzone for me is definitely better. It's a little bit wider here. Doesn't press into my temples as much on this one, and definitely a lot less light leakage. In fact, almost no light leakage for my face on these goggles, which is one of the reasons why I switched. The second main reason I decided to switch is the screen quality of the Skyzones. I felt that it was sharper, the colors were better for me. It is a little bit narrower field of view, which I think is better for me. Not for some people, they may prefer a wider field of view, but I actually like this better. And yeah, I just thought that the screen quality, the image quality was better for me on these, sort of more, I guess it's a 2018 model versus the Fatshark Dominator V3, which is an old model from several years ago. Again, this is the thing with the goggle reviews, it's very subjective, so I'm just going to give you sort of the reasoning behind why I switched. It doesn't mean that this is the best goggle for you. Obviously, the only way you can tell is go out and try them, and then you can determine what factors are more important to you in terms of features and everything like that. And that's going to determine whether or not you're going to want to switch to this goggle or use a Fatshark or something else. Now, of course, the common, I guess, consensus out there in terms of the best goggle is probably the Fatshark HDO, which I've never used, I've never even tried them, not even once. And that combined with the rapid fire receiver module, which is supposedly basically the gold standard in FPV receivers, and that combination is probably going to run you, it's $500 for the goggles plus $150 for the receiver, that module, and so it's like what, $650, $700ish in there. Whereas these Skyzones are going to run you between, depending on where you get them at and what promotions are out there, under $300. I think when I received these, they were on promotion for like $260 or $265, and I believe the price now is like around $280. So yeah, it is a it's kind of apples and oranges, so you know, it's not going to be, this is not probably going to be as good as the Fatshark HDOs or the rapid fire module, but I think for most people, in most situations, this goggle is going to be totally fine. Now, I think that if you are a pilot that's going to be flying in situations where you're in, like maybe in like a bando, a lot of concrete, a lot of metal, you may need a really good receiver. The Fatshark HDOs and rapid fires I hear work pretty well. I can't say anything about whether they're good or not because I've never tried that in any environment because I've never tried it anywhere. But that's at least what I've been hearing out there. Now for me, I've been using the Fatshark Dominator V3s with the Owl RX receiver, and that receiver here I think is better than the built-in receiver on the Skyzones. However, it's not so much better where I feel like missing out, especially in most of the places I fly at, and I don't fly a lot of concrete or bandos, so I don't necessarily need the higher receiver sensitivity that the Owl RX has versus the ones inside the Skyzones. And the other thing that is also a downside is the DVR is not as good on the Skyzones as it is on the Fatsharks. However, I purposefully didn't tell anyone that I switched over to these goggles, and all of my recent footage in the last couple of months for all my reviews that are DVR footage has been from the Skyzones, and I have not received one single complaint from any of the comments that's saying that the video quality from the DVR is any worse. Now, it does look a little bit worse than the Fatsharks, but you know, once you get through YouTube compression and all that kind of stuff, I don't think that that difference is all that noticeable. Now again, back onto the receiver quality here, it's not a bad receiver. Actually, I think it's a pretty good receiver, but it's not the very best receiver. And I just use like these two Foxeer stubby antennas here, like this. Totally fine for most of the places I fly at, and I don't fly very far. If I do, I'll put a patch antenna on, and I don't fly in a lot of places where there's a lot of obstructions. So this setup here is perfectly fine for me. And this is, you know, again, the reasons I switched: lightweight, good fit. I like the image quality of the screens, and you know, those are the reasons why I ended up switching to this module. Also, I like the power button as well. I forgot about that, mention that. Now, this is the Sky02C version. It has the head tracker, I believe, but doesn't have the camera. That one, I think, the X version has the camera. This has a little dummy thing here for the camera. This actually doesn't have a camera. There's actually no camera in this one, but that's something that I would recommend that you don't get because most people would not use that, and so it's easier just to take your goggles off your head to see what's in front of you versus switching over to the camera, and you can save about 40 bucks if you don't get the camera version, which I think is kind of useless. Now, the one thing that is a downside about this goggle that I wish they would change, maybe they will for future versions, is the brightness and contrast settings on the Fatsharks are very easily accessible right here. Basically, it's like a little joystick, but you have to basically go into the main menu here and use the buttons to get to the brightness and contrast. It's not easily accessible, and obviously when you change cameras all the time like I do, having accessibility to that to you deal with darker cameras and brighter cameras or ones with less contrast or more contrast is important for me, and so it is a bit of a hassle to get into the menus and change the brightness and contrast. It's not as easy and simple as it is on the Fatshark. So that's the one downside for me, but other than that, that's really the only downside for me, and that wasn't enough to prevent me from switching to the Skyzones. Anyway, so that's going to do it for this video. I just wanted to give you my reasoning behind why I decided to switch to the Skyzones over the Fatsharks. And you know, as you know, I try a lot of goggles on my channel, and including these Eachine 200Ds, but nothing has come along to the point where I felt like I wanted to switch until I saw these goggles, and that's why you're seeing this video now. That's why I didn't even make a video on the Eachine 200Ds. For one thing, I got those really late, and all the reviews are already out, and I never really wanted to switch to these, so I just kind of use them as like a backup and as goggles just to use, you know, for here and there in different situations, just to test them out. I thought I would eventually make a video about this, but at this point, you know, since I've already switched to Skyzones, I'm just not going to bother making a video on the EV200Ds. But if you, you know, if you want my opinion, I think they're fine. They're totally fine goggles for the price. I think around $280. with 4 receivers and battery and everything. It's just that I personally just don't like the screen quality, the image quality. It's a little bit a little muddied, and the screen looks a little bit sort of squished in when you look at it, even with the diopters on. So that's just for me. So again, you know, these goggle reviews are very subjective, and everything here that I'm saying may completely not apply to you whatsoever, or it may apply to you completely. It just really depends on what you're looking for in a goggle, how it's going to fit you, how the image looks to you, those kind of things. But in terms of functionality, receiver quality, in terms of the price, I think these are all good qualities for this particular goggle. I think you won't have any issues in terms of usability and reliability. Now, that's another thing, reliability and support. So I've had no problems with this one in the last 2 months. We'll see how things go in the long run. Now, I've never had any problems with my Fatsharks in the 3 years I've had them. Never had to send them in for repairs or anything like that. So, you know, again, that's another thing people will say, oh, support for Fatsharks is going to be better. Maybe, maybe not. That's what you hear out there on the internet. You know, obviously Skyzone is a big company as well, and they probably will take good care of you if you have any issues. I've never had any issues with either of these, so I can't say anything about whether support or repairs are good or not. So I'm sorry, I can't really give you much of an opinion on that one. So again, if you're looking for a goggle in the under $300 range, definitely check this one out. For me, I would definitely recommend it. Obviously, I would recommend you try them out if you can. Find someone who has them and give them a shot. Put them on your face and see if you have a good image, and if you can actually be able to fly through them. Because, you know, everyone's experience is going to be a little different. So again, I stress that it's very subjective, and I would encourage you to give them a try before you actually buy them if you can. So we'll have probably another video, maybe in another month or so. I'm going to be getting the Sky03s with the OLED screens coming pretty soon. I think they're coming out in about a couple weeks, and I'll see how those compare to these. I heard that the OLED screens are better. They're going to be kind of like what the Fatshark HDOs are like, but of course I don't have an HDO to compare that to, so you know, well, I can only compare those screens to these LCD screens in terms of how I'm going to review them. But that's the biggest change. I think it's going to come in this probably similar module, or sorry, similar form factor here. So it'll probably fit my face the same way. It's just that I think the DVR is different and the screens are different on the new 03 version. But I'll have that video out maybe in about a month or so, depending on when I get them, and I can give you an idea of whether or not those are any good. I think those are definitely going to be more expensive, but don't think they're going to be as expensive as the HDOs. Anyway, guys, that's good for this video. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.